Flying Tigers, as everybody knows, took 6 years off his age for competitive reasons. So you served your 6 years to your country, we're going to take it off. He was hired as a 31-year-old or 32-year-old. He was really the first one I met. We met at the aviation, taking our medical, and he couldn't get his heart rate up enough. I just always remember that. He had to keep going in, and he'll tell you more about that. Joe came to Tigers from Eglin Air Force Base, flying F-4E Phantoms. Thank goodness for Tigers and all of us that have a good friendship with them. The U.S. Air Force told Joe he'd have to man a desk, and he told them to go screw themselves. So he came over to Tigers, and however, Joe had a very close call in a long, difficult period that he's going to tell you about. Hold on to your hats. We're going to go on a ride, apparently, on Joe's last combat mission. And Joe, come on up. I'm honored to introduce you to my classmate and my friend and our fellow Flying Tiger, Captain Joe Kreka.
While we're straightening things out here, I had a comment to make during the business meeting, but it was a little bit frivolous, so I'll make it now. And we get to look at Susie Latvala's knickers in 5 years. And Bob Tinchism made an announcement thanking John and Jeannie, who looks way too good to be a grandmother, thanking them for the reunion. I got something for John. I was on the East Coast being installed into the New Jersey, you can start working on this, John, being installed in the New Jersey Aviation Hall of Fame. And while I was there, I was at the Lakehurst Naval Air Station, and here was this thing that I thought of. I said, my classmate, John Dickson, needs to have this.
Well, first of all, it's a card that says freedom, pride, glory.
It says, John, the man who did the work of art is Bob Moser from New Jersey. I saw this at Lakehurst Naval Air Station Museum gift shop and immediately thought of presenting it to you. Note that this is not a carving, but rather a work of art using a saw. He knows I'll be presenting this to you before all of the Tigers. Bob doesn't have a business card, but he can be contacted via email. I have the email. If you guys want it, I'll be passing it out to you. In a recent email, he said that when he gets some pictures, he'll send them along so that others who may be interested can get in touch with him. Cheers, check 6, happy flying, Tiger. Joe.
It's beautiful. It's amazing.
And thanks for finding the stand, because I only got 2 hands.
Yes.
And I need one for the laser pointer. Aha! It works. So as a prologue to my little talk, which I've given a few times before, but I'm tailoring it to this group. Back in 1937, Generalissimo Chiang Kai-shek and Madam Chiang needed a talented, experienced guy to reorganize the Chinese Air Force, and because the Japanese were invading the country, and they picked one very talented guy, Claire Lee Chennault, to come over and organize the place. And as it happened, President Roosevelt was looking for a way to aid China in their struggle, and he happened to have 100 Curtiss P-40Bs that were originally going to go to England. You know, sorry, Winston. The first image shows yours truly right there. My front seater is. Can't see it from over here. I'll show you a better picture of him later. When I got there, I was a gung-ho fighter pilot. I remember we landed in a Arizona Air Guard C-97. We flew from Clark Air Base for Jungle Survival School. We landed at Da Nang, and I looked out the window and I thought, You're here. You're finally here. The combat zone. I see airplanes taxiing with napalm rockets, bombs, airplanes coming in from combat missions, airplanes going out. I don't even know where the hell they're going. I know they're going north, they're going south. I can tell by the loads where they're going. And they open the door, and geez, it's like walking into a sauna. It's so damn hot and humid and noisy. But I was overjoyed. I was finally where I wanted to be. And next image. I was assigned to the 40th Tactical Fighter Squadron. And this guy here, we had a name for him. It was something like Charlie Chicken Hawk or Charlie Chicken Hawker, Charlie Chicken Plucker, or something that sounded similar to that. Next. I'm glad you understood that because I wasn't going to say it out loud. Now this is the Gatling gun. This is the Su-16. It carries 1,150 rounds of 20 millimeter, which is 80 caliber. It fires 100 shots a second, 6,000 rounds a minute. I'm going to do a sound impersonation. It does not sound like a gun. It sounds like a bull moose at his moment of greatest joy. Ooh. As fast as you can squeeze and release the trigger, that's 25 rounds. Like that. Next. Here's the gun mounted on F4C 64-0776. The 3 stars on the splitter plate signify that airplane shot down 3 MiGs. They happen to be all 3 MiG-21s. The decal on the side is the gunfighters, and that's because the missiles that we had, the AIM-9 heat-seeking missiles, they didn't arm until the missile traveled 3,000 feet from the airplane. The MiG drivers knew this. They had technocrats that would tell them this stuff. So they would try to maneuver to get in close to the F-4. F-4 could not maneuver with a MiG-17 or even a 21. So once they did that and the MiGs got in close, the F-4 didn't have anything to use against them because we did not have an internal gun. Robert Strange McNamara was so smart. You know, this is the missile age. You guys don't need a gun, you know. Notice all the airplanes now, 15, 16, 18, 22, 35, all have an internal gun, right? No wonder his middle name was Strange. Those fins you see are the air-to-air AIM-7 missiles. They're embedded in the body. I'll show you other missiles later. But anyways, that's the story behind that. So go to the next one. These are the. This is a map of the bases. There's Da Nang. There's Da Nang where I took off from. There's Ubon, Karat. That was an F-4 base. This is a 105 base. Tockley is just off. There's the Phanam, Udorn. That's RF-4s, and that's where the rescue forces were. Up north, can you slide that down at all?
Yeah, that's the whole image.
Okay. Anyways, Yankee Station means the U.S. Navy aircraft carriers taking off from the north, and then there'd be another one down here that would be Dixie Station, and that would be the Navy operating out of the south and supporting air operations in the south. Go to the next one. Now these are route packages. If you start from the 17th parallel, that's the 17 degrees north, we divided the North Vietnam into route pack 1, 2, 3, then 4, 5, 6 Alpha, and 6 Bravo. 1, 2, and 3 were anybody's, but 4 and 6 Bravo were the province of the U.S. Navy because they were coastal, and 5 and 6 Alpha were the U.S. Air Force. 6 Alpha and 6 Bravo were the most heavily defended pieces of real estate on the face of the earth. more heavily defended than Moscow, more guns per square meter than any place than you've ever seen. I flew one mission coming in from over here, and from the whole time from here all the way into the target, the entire landscape on the ground was all these orange little sparklers. And each little sparkler was a big damn gun going on. Boom. Only you couldn't hear the sound. All you could see was these orange things floating through the air, floating like at 4,000 feet per second, and all these black puffs and everything. You saw some of that at the museum yesterday. Only multiply it by 100 to know what it was like over the north. Next. And here's what the thuds, F-105s and F-4s on a KC-135 tanker. What a beautiful sight. Those 105s, they would go on the deck, nobody could stay with them. Their placard speed, maximum allowable speed, we don't pay attention to placard speeds. Hey, lead, how fast are you going? 1,000 miles an hour. That was no joke. That's how fast they were going. Thanks. Is that gin or vodka?
Tequila.
Those 105s could literally go 1,000 miles an hour. 835 knots multiplied by 1.15, and that tells you how fast they're going. And they would exceed that. You could not stay with a 105 on the deck with an F4. At altitude, the F4 was faster. The published maximum speed for the F4 was 2.4 Mach. I've had it up to 2.45. Okay, so you don't have to believe what Jane's All the World's Aircraft says. But that's what it looks like on the tanker. The 105 had a stability augmentation system. It was so stable, it looked like the aircraft was painted on a piece of canvas. It was just solid. The F4 was just kind of wallowing around a little bit. And you can see that the air refueling boom is in the back of the F4. It's behind the back of the back seater. I refueled the airplane on my last combat mission, so the boom is going over my head, behind me.
Wow.
And you have to just pick up references and just fly it, just fly it.
Wow.
Okay, next please. Now this is the last known picture of F-4C's 64-0755, the airplane that I was flying when I got shot down. You can see it has a Gatling gun on the center. It's got napalm cans on the inboard wing stations. Normally there would be AIM-9 missiles hanging on there too, but don't need them for going down south, and there's no MiGs down there. And then two 370-gallon wing tanks on each outboard wing station. And that's the airplane that, as you'll hear later, it took a direct hit right there from a surface-to-air missile, which I'll tell you about later, and it didn't even break the pressure vessel inside the airplane. 400 pounds of high explosive. The enemy had all kinds of anti-aircraft guns. They had from the AK-47 and SKS, which were 7.62 by 30 caliber, which sounded like pop guns. When you listen to an air raid from a cell in the Hanoi Hilton, and you hear all the big guns going, and then you hear the AK-47s, it sounds like popcorn going off by comparison. But the enemy had 23, 37, 57, 85, 100, and 120 millimeter. That's almost 5-inch guns. And they will go up to 35,000 feet. Okay? Next one, please. This is the ZPU 23-4. That's 4 barrels of 23 millimeter, which is almost 1 inch diameter, right? Yeah, 25 millimeter is an inch. And when that thing fires, there was one of them right outside one of our camps. I'm telling you, it sounds like a fierce, wild animal. It does not sound like a gun. It's like that, What the hell was that? It's one of these things. And when you see this thing shooting at you in the air, and they're firing tracers, if you see the tracers coming at you, you're okay, because by relative motion, they're going to curve behind you. When you see those suckers going out in front of you, you're in trouble, because they're probably going to come up like this, and they're going to come and hit you in the forehead. And that's when you got to start jinking it, trying to get out of the collision course that this clever gunner has set up for you. Fearsome weapon. I saw an F4 get caught by this once, and fortunately the guy was able to jink out of it. Actually, I think the rounds went around his airplane and didn't hit him. Couldn't believe it. Next. This is a little bit better map. There's Da Nang. If we took off from Da Nang, there were tanker tracks on the east. All the tanker tracks had a color: red, blue, brown. Guess what they call the tracks over the water? Brown. Guess what they call the tracks over the ground? Blue. I guess that was a confused enemy, but it confused the shit out of me. And I'm easily confused. But here's, let's see, there's Tok Lee, that's Thailand, that's Karat, those are the two 105 bases. That's Yubon, where the famous Robin Olds, 8th TAC Fighter Wing. 2nd of January, 67, they took off and pretended to be F-105s, and they went up, F-105 call signs, F-105 ECM pods, and they got up north, and all the MiG-21s took off, and when they broke through the clouds, the MiG-21 drivers, which were being monitored by our guys in EC-121s, they heard the MiG-21 drivers say in Vietnamese, "They're not 105s, they're F-4s." Oh shit, too late. They shot down half of the MiG-21s that the North Vietnamese Air Force had. 7 of them. Anyways, this is, there's Udorn again, where the rescue guys were. There's Hanoi, there's Haiphong, there's Hainan Island, Laos, Cambodia, Chinese border. If you remember this point up here, there was a prison camp up there, and there's Hanoi, and just to the west of it, there was a prison camp up there called Sante. Caged that too. So on November the 22nd, 1966, I'd only been in Vietnam 100 days, and I'd only started flying missions a week later, so it was only 92 days since I started flying missions. I was on my 87th mission. I was flying with, next one. I was flying with Scotty Wilson. Scotty was an Air Force Academy graduate. He's from Hobart, Indiana. And there were other guys in the squadron that flew F-100s, that flew 105s, had been flying other fighters for a long time. This guy was the best stick in the squadron. We had 4 first lieutenants in the squadron that were front seaters. And they were, I can't say it, ladies, they were lucky something or others, okay? They were very lucky to be in the front seat. Joe Latham, Ron Martin, Murray Borden, and Scotty Wilson. Murray Borden was killed, Scotty Wilson was killed. But anyways, on the way up, Scotty was on his 95th mission. I was on my 87th mission. 87 missions, 92 days. He said, "We're both short timers. We're not going to get into a panic if we get hit." I said, "Don't worry. I'm going to clean this up too, gals." I said, "This friggin' thing's going to have to blow up 7 friggin' times before I jump out of it." Famous last words. So we get hit, boom, like that. Only, you know about temporal distortion? Something really bad happens. You know it's bad. Your brain knows it's bad, but consciously you don't know it's bad. And your brain slows everything down. So this boom that I was experiencing, not hearing, experiencing, turns out to be boom, like that. Like a B and an M and about 40 O's in the middle. And I look in the rear, and I know it's over. I look in the rearview mirrors and I see orange flames and black smoke. And I go, holy crap. Now I remember what Scotty said. Don't get into a panic. I look over it, and it's going to take me a minute to tell you this. It took about 3 seconds or 2 seconds or something like that for all this to occur. I look over the left and right shoulders. Both fire and overheat lights on both engines are on. None of the green lights are on. All of the fire, all of the red and amber lights are on. I know it's all over. I'm thinking that way is the fastest way out of North Vietnam. Now I know that northern Laos ain't that much more hospitable, but I'd rather be in northern Laos than North Vietnam, where and the airplane's rocking like this. I'm unaware of anything else happening. And Scotty, the guy who said we're not going to get into a panic, says I won't split your eardrums the way he said it. Get out, and he's gone. And I remember going like this. And I'm thinking to myself, he's stupid SOB, he's going that way at 600 miles an hour. And so now everything really slows down, and I'm looking at the stick, and the stick in the cockpit is just doing this little dance around the cockpit. And I look at the throttles, and they're way over there in the afterburner range, but the airplane ain't accelerating. And like I said, it's taken me a lot longer to tell you. And I'm still thinking about grabbing the stick and going that way, but my survival instincts, and somewhere in the back of my mind, it must have registered that I'm sitting in the back seat solo in a burning airplane, and I better do something about it. And I reach for there's 2 ways to get out, upper handles and lower handles. I conditioned myself to use the lower handle, and I pulled it, and I'm gone. Now, in the Martin Baker seat, you stay in the seat with a drogue chute until you get to 10,000 feet, and then the seat separates you, pulls your ripcord, pats you in the ass, and says goodbye. It's called a butt snapper. There's 2 straps that go across the back of your seat, and they just straighten out. Pyrotechnic thing, When I got back, I wrote Sir James Martin of the Martin Baker Aircraft Company, and I said, "Thank you very much, sir. Your product worked exactly as advertised." I'm now a member of the Martin Baker Tie Club. Anyways, the chute opens at 10,000 feet, and the deck, the clouds are right there at 10,000. And my chute opened, and my first reaction was to look and get my bearings. And the airplane was in the ground already. Here's the black smoke. And I look around to find Scotty, and there he is in his chute. But there's something wrong. His hands are not up in the risers. His arms are down. His head's down. And at first you don't see anything except what you're looking at. I'm just looking at Scotty. And then boing, I see the rest of the picture. There's another white and brown cloud right next to Scotty. They had fired a second SAM at us. The first SAM was fired from dead 6, hit us from behind and dead in the center of gravity. The second SAM was fired from our left and at a lower and was at the 10,000 foot altitude band and went off right where his chute opened. Now, the SAM warhead is about that high. It has a warhead in it where the explosive fills the warhead like this and then out, and the intervening space is filled with 1-inch steel balls, stainless steel balls. The warhead is 400 pounds of HE, high explosive, and it's designed so that the balls go out in a 60-degree cone. It's designed to knock down a B-52 bomber. So guess what happens when it hits an F-4? 6 750-pound bombs, 14,000 pounds of fuel, and 8 air-to-air missiles. So I hope that it was just a concussion, that none of the balls had hit him and stuff like that. And I was just hoping he was unconscious. So that was at 10,000 feet. I get down to 2,500 feet and I can see little hooches down there. And there's this black thing down there, I don't know what the hell it is, And I get down to 1,500 feet. All pilots know what 1,500 feet is. That's traffic pattern altitude. And that blob, that black thing that I could see down there is changing shape. And I go, oh no, it's people. It's a horde of people. And I go, this is not going to be good. I look back at Scotty. I've been slipping. There's this mountain range called Tom Dow. Yeah, later on, if we have time for questions, you ask me about Tom Dow. There's a Tom Dow mountain range, and I'm right at the tip of it. And I'm trying to slip towards this mountain so I can get maybe at the tip of the mountain and climb up the mountain and climb, then go northwest on the mountain and maybe get a pickup because I'm so close to Hanoi. And all my slipping has done is increase my descent rate and making my capture a little bit sooner. I get down to about 600 feet, and now I'm only about a minute above the ground. Scotty's still lifeless in his chute. I turn towards Scotty. My mask is off. I salute Scotty. I say, "So long, Scotty." I know that by this time he's dead, and I figure that he's going to be on the list of KIAs, and I'm going to join him in about a minute. And so I hit the ground and get captured by a 300, 400 Vietnamese, mostly peasants, some militia, and they are just literally beating the crap out of me. Clubs, sticks, stones, rifle butts, I don't know, I'm laying flat on my back. My helmet's taking a lot of these hits, so I'm feeling bonk, 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 and the screaming is really loud, even though I have my helmet on. And then I feel this piece of metal come in next to my throat. And later on, it was, as was described to me by medics, that this was, I was going into shock, but the way I felt it, it was like a blanket of calm was coming over me. This was shock, right? Anyways, this piece of metal starts going back and forth, and I very matter-of-factly, because I felt calm, that we were going to cut my head off. But the metal is not going towards my throat, it's going away. These are simple people. I'm not making fun of the Vietnamese. They're simple people out in the woods here, out in the fields. They don't know about snaps, zippers, barely know about buttons. And so they're cutting my chin strap off. And all of a sudden, my helmet comes off. And boy, if I thought it was loud before, it's deafening now. And all those blows that my helmet had been absorbing are now being taken by my poor noggin. And it's bang, 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 bang. And of course, I'm being hit all over the place. And I'm looking down, and they're cutting my shoulder harness and my G-suit and my flight suit. And they ruined a perfectly good pair of flying boots with zippers on them. What a bunch of jerks. So anyways, as told to me by other guys in my flight, almost 7 years later, that when I described the ejection to them, they said, "You know what happens when the hydraulics go away from one of these airplanes with an all-flying tail? The leading edge goes down because there's no more pressure, and the airplane goes into a death throw maneuver where it pitches up. Well, when the SAM hit us, they broke looking for another SAM. And when they came back, they saw the airplane doing this. And they saw the airplane get to 45 degrees, and they saw a canopy come off, but they were about a mile away, so they couldn't see if it was front or back seat. They saw the airplane get to about 75 degrees, and they saw a seat come out. And they saw the airplane rotate just a little bit past that, and the airplane blew up. And they thought that was Scotty getting out, but that was me getting out. They thought I was still in the airplane, and I was gone. So you think back, if I'd have grabbed the stick and tried to fly it, and try to get out of North Vietnam, it'd have been in the airplane when it blew up, because it was canopy, seat, boom, just like that. So unfortunately, Scotty didn't make it, and next, please. Well, I wanted to show you the actual picture of the SA-2. Green disappeared. There's the missile. There's the warhead. Next. Here's another picture of the missile. This is in Hanoi. These pictures were taken by POWs who spent perfectly good money that they could have spent on a real vacation, and they went to Hanoi. Next. There's Scotty's picture on the wall. He's at panel 12 East, row 110. Rest in peace, Scotty Wilson. They put me in a little stone building and kept me there, but since I was a gung-ho fighter pilot and full of piss and vinegar, I had to take a leak, and they let me go outside, and the local kids thought this was a real thrill to see an American air pirate captured in his piratical attacks against the people of Vietnam, taking a leak against the side of a building, which is probably against city ordinances anyway. And while I was outside, this little old lady comes up. She was about that tall, and she gives me a bowl of rice and a cup of tea. And I thought, this is just like the damn movies, you know. And survival trainers tell you, take the food, take the drink. This might be the last thing you get to eat or drink for days. My stomach was saying, no, you can't do this. I took the tea and I almost barfed. Anyways, they put me back in Little Hooch until about 5 o'clock. Incidentally, TOT, time over target, was supposed to be 11:53. We got hit about 11:50. So I hit the ground at about noon. About 5 hours later, at about 5 p.m., they blindfolded me. Did I mention that I was in my skivvies all day? It was 40 degrees. I was shivering. There was blood running down in my face. I was a mess. Anyways, they threw me unceremoniously into the back of the bed of a truck, blindfolded, bound hand and foot, and drove about an hour. It took only about 20 miles. And that's where the fun and games began, the interrogation. Next. Now, these are the camps. There were a lot of camps right around Hanoi. And you can see the names, and I can point them out to you, but big deal, right? Next. This is a view from being outside in the courtyard of the Hanoi Hill, and you can see the double bars. They're double staggered bars. Okay. Next. This is a scary one here. You see this stuff up here? This is a walkway between two different cells. This might be room number 3, and that might be room number 4. And this is a doorway. And this is all broken bottles that were cemented into the top while the cement was still wet. And that's about, what, 10, 12 feet tall? And this one over here is the same thing, all broken bottles. And that thing up there is carrying electrified wires that are running along the top here. So even if you could get to the top there, you'd be slashed to hell, and you'd be electrocuted when you got to the top. And then you'd have the problem of trying to get out of the country. So you can't do it without outside help. Anyways, let me tell you about the torture. I get met by this guy with very sinister looking guy. And he's sitting in a straight back chair. There's a table, and I've got a stool. And according to the code of conduct, I'm not supposed to have to tell him anything except name, rank, serial number, date of birth. Ha ha. So he asked me my name, my rank, my serial number, date of birth. And I thought, great, this is going super, you know. Maybe I'll have a coffee and a cigarette pretty soon. Then he asked me what was my target, and I go, oh shit. I tell him my name. He didn't like that. And he says, what is your squadron? And I tell him my rank. So no matter what question he asked me, I just kept on going through the litany of name, rank, serial number, date of birth. Name, rank, serial number, date of birth. That went through about 3 cycles of that. He closed his book and he said, very convincingly, Krucka, you will die in Vietnam. Closed his book and he left. 15 minutes later, while I'm contemplating my very short future, here he comes back with 4 hooligans, bang on the floor. They wrap my arms above, just above the elbows, so tight that I lose all feeling from my elbows down to my fingers in about a minute. Then they strap my elbows behind my back so they're touching. And they put monocles on my wrists, so my wrists and my elbows are touching behind my back. Now, if you want to do this at home, you have to have some help. So my wrists and elbows are behind my back touching. They blindfold me. They loop a rope from my neck to my wrists, and from my wrists to my ankles, and they pick me up. And I thought about Gunga Din. You know what I thought about Gunga Din? They're going to drop me in a pit of snakes. And I thought, no, maybe I'll be lucky and they'll drop me in a well. I won't be able to drink from the well for a long time. But anyways. Then the next thing I know is they drop me. And I wondered what the hell was going on. Did they do it on purpose, or was that just an accident? So they picked me up and they dropped me again. I thought, okay, I get the idea. For the next hour, I don't know how long. It seemed like about an hour. They picked me up and they dropped me, and they picked me up and they dropped me. And after what seemed like a little over an hour, incidentally, if they ask you questions and you immediately start telling them, okay, I'll tell you what the target is, they're not going to believe you. You have to endure a significant amount of pain, and then maybe they'll believe you. So I had to take a significant amount before anything I said would be believable. So I took about an hour of this, hour 15 is the way I think it worked out. And I said, okay, I'll tell you what you want to know. And then I told them a cock and bull story, and I repeated that story for the next seven days. And after that, I don't know whether they believed me or not, but they quit asking me questions. Next. The tap code. Okay, you had to be able to, the next room would go 2 bits. So you wanted to say hi, you tap down to the row and over to the column. So hi would be tap, 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 tap. I'll do it here. That's high. Okay? If it was danger, you just hear a bump on the wall. Boom. Like that. That meant stay away from the wall. I could tap as fast as anybody. I could receive as fast as anybody, but I was completely at a loss for the visual code, which was A, B, C, D, E, F. One of my favorite letters was Q. Now, you could also, from across the camp, you could use the tap code by doing like this. You could do it from 300 feet away. You could use sweeps of a broom, coughs, or any combination of the two. The Vietnamese never stopped us from communicating, no matter how hard they tried. It boosted our spirits. It kept us going. No man is an island. I was in solitary for 8 months, but I spent nearly 4 years in a room with 3 other fighter pilots. Next. That's yours truly. I think I weighed 125 pounds at that point. And there's Lauren Torkelson, Bob Abbott's in the background. This is a kind of a hilarious scene, actually. It was a kind of a propaganda thing that they wanted to do. The camp commander said, let's take these 4 guys out of the room and have them slaughter a turkey, and these Japanese photographers are going to take pictures of it, you know? So there's about 20 or 30 of these Japanese guys with all kinds of cameras. And Krekka's going to hold down the turkey. Torkelson, he's a farm boy. He's a Marlboro man, really. He's going to slice the turkey's head off and Creckett's going to hold him down. Well, Lauren did a good job of cutting the turkey's head off, but Creckett really screwed up with the turkey, holding him down, because I didn't realize how strong a 25-pound turkey was. So I'm holding the turkey down, and the next thing I know, the head's still on the table, and the turkey's running around in an elliptical orbit around the yard with blood spurting around his neck, and I'm wondering, how the hell does he know which way is up? There's some sort of communication going on between the head on the table and the finally he runs out of hydraulic pressure and flops over. The camp commander, his veins are standing out on his head, his face is turning purple. The Japanese photographers are laughing their asses off, and we are too. Next. You can see I got a shit-eating grin on my face. That's Lauren Torkelson, Crosby, North Dakota. That's me, and that's Bob Abbott.
You're in the middle, Joe?
Yeah, I'm in the middle. I'm trying to hold back a grin, see. Try the next one, Bill. So that's Lauren, me, Bob Abbott, and Jim Shively. Jim is from Spokane, Washington. They're relegated to peeling potatoes while Lauren and I have the big job, see. But anyways, we finally got it right, and he cut the head off the next turkey, and I bore all of my immense strength onto the second turkey. And the second turkey was really pissed off because he didn't really have to die, except I screwed up on the first turkey. I'm having so much fun, I mixed my pages up. Wait a minute. You know that when you live together 24/7 with the same people, you'll know everything about these guys, everything about each other. And so you might look around and pick out 3 guys of your same gender and ask, could you live in the same room for 4 years with these 3 guys? You know. Let me tell you about brutality. Mike Christian was a Navy pilot, shot down 24 April '67 in an A6A Intruder. And during his captivity, he was able to, we had clothes, but they would give us needle and thread to fix our clothes because rather than giving us new ones. So Mike would take the needle and thread, and he fashioned an American flag. And every day, the guys in his cell he would keep it hidden in his clothing. He would take the flag out, and they would salute the flag and recite the Pledge of Allegiance until one day the VC found the flag, took Mike out of his room, and beat him to within an inch of his life. When Mike came back to the room, his eyes were practically closed from the beating. He was bloodied. He was an absolute mess. What did Mike do when he came back to his cell? He went back to his bed, got out his needle and thread, and started making another American flag. In the Chronicle, "We Came Home" by Barbara Powers Wyatt, this is what Mike said at the end of his entry. Quote, "Perhaps the 2 strongest lessons I learned are, 1, look around and find those who love you. Be aware of their love and react to it while you still can. 2, the international communist revolution is a deadly serious business and we must become aware of it. We need not panic, but we absolutely must deal with communism from a position of strength. Peace at any price politics will destroy us."
Yes,
end quote.
that's right. Amen.
Now I wonder what Mike would say if he was with us here today. I bet that he would issue us an even sterner warning than he did in 1973. He wouldn't have forgotten what he said about communism, and he couldn't ignore the threat of international terrorism. But I'll bet he'd be warning us that the biggest and most serious threats that we face today do not come from outside the USA, but from within. And some of those threats start right at the top of our government. In September 1983, Mike Christian was trapped inside an apartment fire. Bars on the windows prevented him from making an escape. He battled to get through, but he lost the fight. Rest in peace, Michael David Christian. At one point, I had a cellmate named Doug Hegdahl. He's a 19-year-old Navy seaman apprentice. He was a sailor aboard the USS Canberra guided missile cruiser that also had 8-inch guns. Early on the morning of April the 5th, 1967, and against orders. He's a 19-year-old, right? You want to go up and hear the bang and see the flash? They were going to use the 8-inch guns to try to drop a span on the Hammerong Dragon's Jaw Bridge. Remember package 4? Right on the coast. We lost a lot of airplanes, a lot of pilots trying to drop that bridge. It was greatly reinforced. And so he's up on the deck. It's like 3 o'clock or 3:30 in the morning. Here's the ship going through the South China Sea. You know, here's the 8-inch gun. You know, pointing there like that, and the ship's going through the sea like that. The gun goes boom like that. The ship goes sideways. Doug stays right where he was, like a Wile E. Coyote cartoon. Sploosh. So he goes into the water. He doesn't know which way is up. But it's all black. There's this gurgling sound. He hears whoosh, 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 as the screws go by. Must have been on the inside of a turn, so the screws were going out away from him, you know. And after about 30 seconds, he miraculously pops to the surface. And that's what he said. It was complete silence, complete darkness. And I'm wondering, why the hell didn't they keep on firing? And I figure somebody up on the firing bridge said, "Okay, Hegdal's overboard, you can quit shooting." Now, Doug, he was from South Dakota, is Norwegian. He looks back on his experience with a wry sense of humor. He said he had the slowest ejection of the entire war. He also tells the rest of us he wasn't captured, he was rescued. Months later, we became cellmates, and he got orders from higher-ups. Incidentally, the highest-ranking POW was who? No, it wasn't. It was John Peter Flynn, Air Force, okay? Highest-ranking Navy POW was Stockdale, okay? Let's straighten that one out. Anyways, the higher-ups said, if you get a chance to go home early, go home, but take intelligence information with you, mainly names of POWs, names and locations of camps, how many in each camp, etc., as much stuff as you can. To his credit, Doug didn't want to go home early and be one of those guys that went home early that tarnished the reputations of 11 other guys. But Doug was ordered to go home. And anyways, eventually he agreed to learn the names. I was at one of the memory banks. I had learned up to that point 252 names. By the time I came home, I had 352. I taught the names to Doug, and by the time he went home, August the 5th, 69, he had added 20 more. He went home, and a lot of families whose loved ones were listed as missing in action now became changed to POW. So my hat's off to Doug. Next. There were two pivotal events I want to tell you about: Sante Raid and Linebacker 2. November the 21st, 1970, U.S. Army Special Forces commandos flown by Air Force pilots raided. Remember I showed you the map and I said there was a camp just west of Hanoi? Can you believe that we would attack any place with ground forces right next to the capital of North Vietnam at night, of course, trying to rescue POWs? Unfortunately, the POWs had been moved. We had no way of knowing that that had occurred. But even though the attempt failed, we spooked our captors so bad that they took everybody. Remember I showed you all the camps right around the city? They closed all those camps and moved us all right into the city, into those big rooms that would hold 50, 60 guys at a time. And with all that talent in one place, we started teaching college classes. We even had a dean, Charlie Stackhouse. He was 6'4", 230 when he was captured. Now he's probably 165. And obviously he flew an A4. The A4 had a cockpit like that, and they all had these incredible hulks flying. You know, one day we came back from a mission. We passed four A4s going back to the boat. We sit in our F4s, we waved to them like that, and these four A4 incredible Hulk guys waved back at us. So I was a student of math and Russian, and I taught math, automotive theory and practice, classical music, and physics. And yeah, very important to keep your mind occupied. Next one. The mighty B-52. In late '72, the North Vietnamese and the Viet Cong representatives walked away from the peace table in Paris. And President Nixon, in order to get them a favorable frame of mind to come back to the peace conferences, and despite opposition from his advisors, ordered B-52s to bomb Hanoi and Haiphong. The operation was called Linebacker 2, and he told the Vietnamese communists that the bombardment would continue until they came back to the conference table. Linebacker 2 began on the 18th of December, 1972, and it continued until the 27th, except for a bombing halt on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. Okay? That did not keep the mainstream media from calling it the Christmas bombings. Anyway. Anyways, they came back, and an accord was signed on the 27th of January, 1973. The first group came home, of POWs came home on the 12th of February, sick and wounded first. And if it hadn't been for the courage and sacrifice of the tactical air crews, especially the B-52 crews, and the determination of President Nixon, the POWs may never have returned. I would not be standing here. Same thing if George McGovern had won the 1972 election. We were released in order to shoot down sick and wounded first. I already said that. When I boarded the first C-141, when I boarded my C-141, saw the U.S. flag on the tail of that airplane. What a sight. I didn't allow myself to relax until we were 30 miles off of the coast. You know why? Maximum range of the surface-to-air missiles. Now, next slide. That's my group. I'm sure you can recognize yours truly.
No, we can't. No, right there.
Yeah. We were all told to be grim-faced. Well, I was a grim-faced son of a bitch anyway. What was there to be happy about anyway? Next. Here I am being greeted by Colonel Abel. Next. Here I am sitting next to Charlie Plum on the C-141. I was in the very back row. I remember I'm sitting back there minding my own business, and all of a sudden this thing in my peripheral vision goes ka-chunk, ka-chunk, ka-chunk. And it's the February 1973 Playboy centerfold. And I just said, "Give me that!" And then I wondered who handed it to me. And I turned around, it was an Army colonel. I said, sorry. He said, that's okay. What was he going to do, send me to North Vietnam? The feelings on that airplane approached what I consider hysterical happiness, okay? There were roars of cheers that went up inside the airplane from the POWs and the pilots. Started the engine, when they pushed the throttles up to takeoff thrust, and again when the airplane rotated for takeoff. Those are called significant emotional events. By the way, did you know that a future Tiger pilot was in the cockpit of that 141, flying a future Tiger pilot in the back, and his name was John Tim Chizen. John, please stand up. I'm the kind of guy that looks at lists and stuff like that, and I compared names, and I thought, this is a really strange name to see on the Tiger Pilot seniority list. Wait a minute, I've seen that name before someplace. It was on the on the airplane list of the ones that flew us home. Thank you, John. Thank you, Tim. This is on the bus coming home. And these are Jerseyans. That's Joe Milligan. I think that's John Davies, and that's me. Next. This is getting off the airplane at Newark. Next. Three's in. Everybody knows about when an airplane is shot down and you're coming back to a mission, and the airplanes come back to the field, they leave an empty slot in the formation at the number 3 position. And when the POWs came back, the symbology was that 3 is back in. And so that's what the symbology of this is. And the last image is our opinion of one, oh, sorry. This is, next, please. These are the silly POWs that spent perfectly good money to go see what the outside of the Hanoi Hilton looked like. Maison Centrale means the main central prison. I was not among these silly guys. And the last slide is what we think of Jane Fonda. One last thing is I was talking to I think I was talking to Ken Kahn last night about what it takes to keep going and stuff like that. And besides faith in God, faith in country, faith in family, and faith in self, you always had to have a sense of humor. It's like the center pillar in the circus tent. You know, if you had that, you could always take the edge off all of the crap that was going on. But here is the quote that kept me going. Nothing in the world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent. The slogan, press on, has solved and always will solve the problems of the human race. End quote. Calvin Coolidge. Wow. I spent 6 years and 3 months in the Hanoi Hilton, and I'll never forget the friendships that were forged under the most difficult of circumstances. Press on. God bless America. Thank you for your attention.
I've got all day for questions and answers. Would you like to spend 20 minutes with some Q&A?
Yeah.
Is Carrie coming to the River Ranch reunion?
Paul Carey?
No, Carrie. What is it?
Oh.
Indian child. Our Secretary of State is
Oh,
coming to the River Ranch.
I'd kick him in the nuts if he showed up.
Everybody knows Joe will be here all day, all tonight for any questions and answers, but I would suggest that anybody who would like to stick around and listen to some questions and answers, let's do 20 minutes of it.
There were 661 POWs. There were 591 in Operation Homecoming. Hey, Robin.
Well, we did that last night, public meeting in
Go ahead.
I don't know the answer to the exact number. I could give you a couple of names of guys who died, but Lance Syjan died.
Yeah, we'll be here until...
There was a guy that died. There was a program called the Cuban Program. Fidel Castro sent over 3 interrogators to conduct what turned out to be the most brutal interrogation program that anybody conducted over there. And one guy, I was trying to think of his name, he was a F-105 electronic warfare officer who was tortured to insanity and died. And he was one of them. I'm embarrassed that I can't remember his name.
Well, and fill in the story, because you didn't really mention it, but I know I've had that story with you, or you told the story.
I can't hear you.
The story about how the names were remembered in a song.
Rudy asked how the names were remembered in song because Doug Hegdahl used Old MacDonald had a farm to remember to remember the names. I didn't resort to any such musical devices. I just remembered the names. But that's what Doug did. And Doug used to say, you know, he says, once you start, you can't stop. It's like riding a bike. You know, if you stop, you fall over. Yeah, Bob.
Joe, how did you get the pictures of cutting the turkey's head off?
Those must have been published someplace, and I just exported them from some archive. I don't know where the hell they came from.
Oh, the Japanese.
Yeah, probably, yeah. Anybody else?
Did they let you eat the turkey after the pictures?
Yeah, we only got about 20% of the turkey, though. Yeah, Ty.
So I was a Navy pilot and I had...
That's too bad.
No, I would have been junior there. But we did SEER school, and I was fortunate enough to finish my flight training about 2 months after Vietnam ended. And my SEER school was one hell of an emotional event for 5 days there in Warner Springs, all expense paid vacation and weight loss program at Warner Springs, San Diego. When you arrived and you got kicked up in your skivvy shorts all day and all progressed, did you pre-know the tap code when you got there, or is that something?
No, I didn't, but it brings up a super interesting story. When I was sitting in the room after I had name, rank, serial number, date of birth, and the interrogator had said, "Cracker, you will die in Vietnam," left. I'm sitting there, and I'm just sitting at the stool, you know, I'm afraid to move, and I'm looking at the table, which is all completely scratched up, you know, just a complete mess. But when you see something that's geometric, you recognize it, you know? And what the hell is on the table? The 5x5 code. And right below it, it says, POWs, learn this code. Right under the nose of this sinister son of a bitch, you know? Incidentally, this guy was named independently by two different groups of POWs. One group named him Dump Shit, and the other group named him Dum Dum. But anyways, that's how I learned the code. It said tap down to the row and over to the column. And it didn't tell you, I don't remember the shave and the haircut. But anyways, I caged the AF, all I had to remember was an AFLQV down the left side. Some guys were counting, you know, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I said, no, you're just doing double mental stuff. You know, just memorize the letters and then go across. I said, what about K? I said, you want a master's degree in tap code? Use the C for a K, or tap 6 over from, you know, 6 taps over from the F, you know? A, F, F, G, H, I, J, K. Big deal.
I had trouble with Morse code, so I don't know.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, the Navy guys tried to convince me, you know, just use the Morse code. I said, okay, smarty ass, how do you type a dash? Oh, let's see, a dot would be, and a dash would be. That takes too long. Yes, sir.
How old were you when you were shot down? How old were you when you were shot down?
25. No, 26.
Joe, you were a physics student major in college or something?
I was a mechanical engineering major.
What?
But
What were you crazy to go in?
What?
You crazy to go and fly an airplane?
No, I was just good in physics. Physics is what I got A's in. My favorite teacher was Dr. Achille Capisolatro.
I was just going to ask you if you were married.
I was. I was asked if I was married when I came home. They ushered me over to a hospital room, and they said, we have some news for you. And I said, what's that? And they said, your wife divorced you.
Sorry.
It was on the day I got released. And I said, okay, thanks, bye. And they said, that isn't all. And I said, what? They said, your father died. And I said, when did that happen? They said, 1968. I got released in 73, so it was 5 years before. So the day I got released was a real bad day.
You talked about some mountains as you were descending. Would you cover that, please?
Thank you, Ken. Somewhere around 1977, I see this National Geographic, and it talks about the Tom Dow mountain range. Well, I remember Tom Dow. That was Stud Ridge. That mountain range that we used to fly down, we used to use for terrain masking. We dropped down below the mountain so the SAM radars couldn't see us as we're heading towards the target. That's what we were doing. We were dropping down to get below the clouds and below the edge of the mountains for terrain masking. And that's the mountain I was trying to slip towards. I was right at the southern tip of it. So I'm reading this article about the Tom Dow Nature Preserve. And it turns out, there's long articles and stuff. It turns out that the place that I was slipping towards and was planning on climbing up the mountain ridge to get where I could maybe get picked up has the highest concentration of poisonous creatures on the face of the earth. Yeah, Robin?
At what point did you meet that interrogator you call the agent?
Oh, the agent. He's a funny guy. We had one. We named everybody. We had dumb shit, Dilligaff. You know what that means. Do I look like I give up? There was one interrogator we had that we called the agent, and the reason I thought they named him the agent because like 007, something like that. No, it was because if it wasn't for you American air pirates, I was going to be a travel agent. Now I'm an interrogator. One day the agent is interrogating the Marlboro Man, Lauren Torkelson, rest in peace, my best friend ever. He's not with us anymore. But he's giving Lauren Torkelson a lecture, and he says he would use visual things like, "You have shed the blood of the Vietnamese people, but we are determined to fight and win against the American imperialist aggressors." And right about that time, 4 thuds, F-105s, go over and burn her like that. And he gets up, eyes about as big around as saucers, and he says, "American airplanes!" And he runs out of that interrogation room and leaves Torkelson sitting there all by himself with the cigarettes and everything. Yeah, I'm convinced you're going to win this one.
When you returned, did you stay in the Air Force, and what was like reintegrating into normal life?
Right after I got back, I took 5 months of unauthorized leave, and nobody gave me any shit about that. And then I went to Randolph Air Force Base to get requalified in jets. And I went through the T-38 in 56 days and 35.6 hours of flying time, and we got requalified in contact and transition and formation flying. And then I went to George Air Force Base to get checked out in the front seat of the F-4. And then I went to Eglin to get qualified as a tactical air crew, where I had to sign a piece of paper that said, yes, you can send me back into combat over communist country. Because I want to kill more of those bastards.
Did you get all your back pay?
Fortunately, my wife divorced me 13 months before I came back, and I had 13 months of pay. Unfortunately, I didn't. All I had was a duffel bag full of old clothes, and that was it. But I got the 13 months of pay. Yeah.
When they were bombing Hanoi, how close did they get?
Air raids were great. You could scream at the top of your lungs, and the guards couldn't hear you. They couldn't give you shit about it, An air raid was characterized in one of two ways. Either the airplanes would get there before the sirens, or the sirens would get there before the air raid. But you'd hear the big guns off in the distance, and then the smaller guns, and and sometimes you'd hear the little pop of the AK-47s, and sometimes you wouldn't. But the noise was horrendous. And sometimes, if you could hear the airplanes, they were really close because the guns were so loud. There were 37 and 57 all around the camp. And it's just, it's so loud, it's like all of your other senses are blocked out. It's almost like you couldn't see. And one day, the explosions were so loud, or so close, it blew the doors open on Abbott, Shively, and Torkelson's room. And the smoke was blowing through the camp, and nobody knew that the doors were open until the smoke cleared. And then the guards looked over, and they saw that door was open, but the three guys were still sitting there minding their own business. And just let me tell you one more thing, Ted. December the 14th, 15th, and 16th. Is Seidemann here? The Wild Weasels were the 105s, and they flew the ARM, the anti-radiation missiles. These are the guys that fly around, and they do what they call dips, okay? And they don't just fly around the SAM site looking for the SAM site. They do ups and downs because they get more triangulation information by getting altitude information going up and down. So they do these dips, but every time they would turn inbound to the SAM site knew by the position of the 105 that they were the target, and they'd shut the radar off. So Leo Thorsness, later a famous POW, says, "I'm going to screw these guys. I'm going to fire the missiles instead of firing them from 15 miles out. I'm going to fire them from 35 miles out, but they won't think they're the target because I'm so far out. But I'm going to build up my speed to Mach 1.5, and they won't know that." So that's what they do. They do their dips way out there. Instead of the target being right here, it's way the hell out there. They do their dips, and they're going 1.2 to 1.3 Mach, and they light the burners, and they get it going really fast, and they turn, and they pull up, and they launch the missile in a big up angle, like 15 or 20 degrees, and the missile would take off, and the SAM site would have no friggin' idea it was coming. So on December the 14th, 15th, and 16th, I'm in my room. I was in the zoo, and I hear what the was that? That was Leo Thorsness saying hello. It was a SAM radar, like only a mile away, and it got the shit blown out of it. Happened 3 days in a row. So, did that answer the question that somebody asked? Ted.
Joey, tell them about the linebacker raids and how everybody reacted to it when they came in and you guys were in the camp.
Well, we were up north. We're up in China.
Yeah.
We're up close to the Chinese border. But there were they moved half of the POWs up May 1472. They took 209 of us and moved us up to the camp called Dog Patch. And the senior ranking officer was John Stavist, and he didn't appreciate it very much that we wanted to call him Mammy Yokum. But what we didn't know is that they left another almost equal number back in Hanoi in that Camp Unity, and the B-52 bombing started, and they were scary because you couldn't hear the airplanes. The first thing you had to hear is get louder and louder and louder until you couldn't hear a damn thing, and you wouldn't even hear the guns because the bombs. A B-52 carries like 112 bombs, and they could drop it in 3 seconds. and it would cover 1,200 feet by 300 feet, and you just go like that, and it would just POWs that were released said they saw like cross-country locomotives turned upside down. They saw the ground that looked like it had been plowed. It was just absolutely leveled. Italians talk with their hands. Leveled. It was incredible. But up north, I see a newspaper. I can't read Vietnamese, but I can read B-52. You're trying to hide something from me, Uncle Ho? And I can see a picture of an American in a flight suit, and I can read Fernando Alexander, and I can see this guy is 6'4", and he ain't no Vietnamese. So we know that there's B-52s hitting Hanoi, and they shot one down, and here's one of the airmen. It turned out to be a navigator. So we know that the B-52s are bombing the city.
Well, folks, I think you know that Joe's going to be here, and I know we could stay here all night long, or all day long. But most of you did this. We had some posters. Bill Allen had the poster of this year made up. Looks just like that. I hope that a good majority of you were able to sign it. And we're ceremoniously going to give you a copy. Because Joe has to fly, we didn't frame it for you, but it's in the tube, and I'll make sure you get it.
Okay,
But it looks, and Joe even signed his own poster. Thing. Elliot Schulman has brought a DVD called Gray Eagles. He says it's a must-see. We're going to set it up. We understand if you got other things to do, or whatever, go to the restroom. We're going to set it up. If there's only one person in here that wants to watch it, we're going to play it. Elliot, it's
25 minutes.
25 minutes. The story of two generations, one American family, and a plane called February, narrated by Peter Coyote. But other than that, that concludes this whole thing, and I thank everybody for coming, and let's go out and have a good time.